Expressive individualism is a term used by philosophers such as Charles Taylor to talk about the way we think about being selves in the present day. And expressive individualism particularly refers to the idea that in order to be fulfilled, in order to be an authentic person, in order to be genuinely me, I need to be able to express outwardly or perform publicly that which I feel I am inside. So expressive individualism in some ways overturns a lot of the notions of the self that previous generations may have held to. I grew up in England. The idea of reserve, of not expressing one's emotions in public was very, very important to the kind of upbringing I had. Today, of course, when we look at, for example, reality television, we're presented constantly with images of people who are letting it all go, letting it out, letting it rip. So expressive individualism is simply this idea that the most authentic individual, the most real person, is the person who expresses or performs outwardly that which they are inwardly. That has obvious implications for the sexual revolution, because take, for example, the most extreme example of the sexual revolution, the whole notion of somebody being transgender. What does transgenderism claim? Well, it claims that somebody with the body of a man who yet feels inside that they are a woman has the right, the need to express outwardly in the way they dress, the way they behave, even the restrooms they care to use, has the right to express that inward conviction in their outward public behavior. And you see this quite often in the testimonies of transgender people. If you look at the interview with Bruce Jenner, for example, that he did with Diane Sawyer, when he talked about really about finally being himself, about having lived a lie. That's language of expressive individualism, where the idea is that society has forced me to behave in certain ways that don't conform with my inner feelings and my inner convictions. And in a society where the expressive individual is increasingly the norm and increasingly presented as that which we should all be, then the idea of society itself forcing us to play a role that we don't feel comfortable with inside makes us inauthentic. So the sexual revolution, particularly in its transgender form, is a specific, I think, sexualized manifestation of this wider normative person. There is a sense in which expressive individualism correlates to some aspects of Christianity, because of course the Bible has much to say about hypocrites. It has a lot to say about those who pretend outwardly to be one thing and yet in reality are something quite different. And one might say that Augustine, in his great work, The Confessions, the psychological autobiography that he writes in the 390s, is giving expression to expressive individualism there, when he's talking about his inward feelings as he moves away from the church and then back to the church. So there's a sense in which that correlation between the inward and the outward and the importance of the inward life is something that lies very much at the heart of Christianity. One of the big differences, though, I think, between what we might call Christian expressive individualism and secular expressive individualism is that Christian expressive individualism acknowledges that there may be a problem with that which is inside. Augustine's expressive individualism, his confessions, his crying out to God, is always a result of, well, he's moving inward in order to move outward to God. He's not moving inward simply to work out how he needs to express himself to his friends and his neighbors. He's moving inward in order to reach upwards to God and to try to bring that which is inward in conformity to the external will of God. So expressive individualism, like a lot of things, captures something of the truth. Human beings, we do have an inner life, and that inner life is very important to who we are. But I think a Christian would say that the transgender person who acts out their transgender convictions in the public realm is really fooling themselves in a way that a Christian who knows inwardly he or she is sinful needs to repent, needs to turn to God, needs to go inwards in order to turn outwards to God and to Christ. That's where real authenticity lies.